Welcome to Mind Shield. We protect the mind and pursue the truth. Let's get started.
All right, welcome back to Mind Shield. Today, we're getting into something absolutely essential: how to take all those separate, isolated incidents and start weaving them into real, powerful patterns. We're going to build a system for finding signatures that can't be brushed aside, moving way beyond just telling stories. This quote right here really nails what we're trying to do. See, a personal story, it's powerful, for sure, but it can also be dismissed as, just a one-off thing, an anomaly. A documented pattern, though, one that's backed by solid data, that is way, way harder to just ignore. And that's the shift we're making today, from a subjective story to objective evidence. Okay, so how do we actually make that shift? Where do we start? Well, it all begins with changing our whole approach. We're not just recounting what happened anymore. We're building a structured, evidence-based case file. The foundation for any strong case, and I mean any case, is a disciplined chronological log. You have to stop thinking of this as a personal diary. It's not. Think of it as a forensic timeline, a prosecutor-grade timeline. This is exactly how we take a whole mess of confusing events and turn them into a clear, undeniable sequence of facts. Now, to spot patterns across different cases, we first have to agree on a common framework. It's just common sense, right? We've got to be recording our data in a consistent, structured way. Otherwise, we're not comparing apples to apples, and the whole thing falls apart. The tool we're going to use for this is called a taxonomy. Sounds a little academic, I know, but don't worry. All it is, really, is a shared checklist. It's a system that makes sure every single one of us is capturing the same critical details for every single incident. And that consistency, that is the absolute key that's going to unlock some seriously powerful cross-case analysis. Okay, look at this slide. This is your new playbook, your data gathering template. Let's just quickly run through why every single one of these categories is so critical. Temporal, that's your date and time stuff. It's going to reveal timing patterns. Spatial data, that can pinpoint hotspots, sometimes down to a single chair in a room. Symptoms, well, that's your core data, what you're actually experiencing. Environment helps you spot potential outside factors. And artifacts. Artifacts are your hard proof. They are your verifiable third-party evidence. You put all this together, and you're not just telling a story. You are building a detailed forensic trail. So we've got our shared language, our taxonomy. The big question now is, how much data do you actually need before you can start seeing real, credible patterns? Let's talk about what makes for a solid foundation for your analysis. Building a credible dataset really comes down to three main things. First, you've got to log your most significant incidents using that detailed taxonomy we just talked about. Second, and listen, this one is a total game changer. You have to log null trials. That means logging the times when nothing is happening. And third, you capture your strongest, most concrete pieces of evidence. That combination, it paints a much, much stronger picture than just logging the bad stuff. And this is exactly why those null trials are so incredibly powerful. Think about it. When you log periods of normalcy, you're creating a control group for your own experiment. It helps you rule out constant internal things, maybe like a chronic health issue, and it makes the argument that specific external conditions are at play so much stronger. It shows you're being rigorous. So what's a good number to shoot for? A good starting point? Try to log at least 10 distinct, significant incidents with that full level of detail. That number, plus your null trials and your P artifacts, gives you a really solid data set to begin your analysis without feeling totally overwhelmed. Okay, you've done the hard work, you've collected the data, now comes the really challenging part: disciplined analysis. We have to be so careful to connect the real dots and not just invent patterns out of simple coincidences. The biggest trap in any kind of analysis is our own brain. We are all wired for something called confirmation bias. That's our tendency to see what we expect to see and totally ignore anything that contradicts it. So the very first step is just admitting that. Our goal here has to be to constantly, actively challenge our own assumptions. And this distinction right here, it's absolutely critical. Our job, as investigators, is to be super rigorous about documenting correlations. That's the pattern. So saying symptoms only appear in this one room, that's a correlation. That's a fact from your log. But jumping to, there must be a device hidden in the wall, see, that's a leap to causation. That's a story. We have to stick to the verifiable facts and let the evidence lead the way, not our theories. So how do we keep ourselves honest? How do we stick to the facts? By asking this one simple, powerful question over and over again. What are the alternative, simpler explanations for this pattern? Before you jump to any conclusion, force yourself to brainstorm every other possible reason for what you're seeing. Start with the most boring, simple ones. Could it be a faulty wire? A new Wi-Fi router next door? This process is what keeps your analysis sharp and makes it strong enough to stand up to real scrutiny. Look, this kind of work is really, really hard to do in a vacuum. It's almost impossible to see our own biases. That's why having a supportive, critical peer review process is so invaluable. Working together, we stand a much better chance of finding the real signal in all that noise. But before you even think about sharing anything, we have to operate by a very strict code of conduct. These are non-negotiable. Rule number 1, anonymize everything. Never, ever share personally identifiable information. Protect yourself, protect others. Rule 2, the focus has to stay on the patterns and the artifacts, not on pointing fingers or naming names. And rule 3, maybe the most important, remember why we're here. The goal is data validation, not firing up the rumor mill. So when you do share your findings with your trusted peers, the group should be asking tough questions like these. These aren't meant to attack you. They're designed to pressure test the analysis. Asking, what's the simplest possible explanation, isn't about tearing down your work. It's about building it up, making it stronger, more credible, and frankly, a lot harder for anyone to dismiss. So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway from all this. By moving from just telling stories to collecting structured data, we build cases that demand to be taken seriously. Disciplined data collection, rigorous analysis, these are our most powerful tools. So join us next time when we tackle the next big challenge. You've got the data. Now, how in the world do you report it without getting immediately dismissed?